First year, covering 14 million taxpayers, provides payments of $350 each, plus an additional $350 if they have at least one dependent. For single filers, earning up to $75,000, and joint filers up to $150,000. A sticking point in talks between the governor and lawmakers was over rebates, sending them to wealthy Californians, and the plan to announce them wouldn't provide anything for some 500,000 taxpayers earning more than $250,000 annually. Meanwhile, news last week that some Republicans could try to bring a legal challenge against the policy of student loan forgiveness. According to CNBC News, despite the uncertainty, borrowers should still be updated on the process to take all the necessary steps. Biden announced last month that most federal student loan borrowers will be eligible for some forgiveness, up to $10,000 if you didn't receive a Pell Grant, which is a type of aid available to low-income undergraduate students, and up to $20,000 if you did. According to the White House, of the estimated 43 million borrowers who will be benefiting from the administration's forgiveness plan, more than 60% are Pell Grant recipients. The relief will be limited to borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year, or married couples or head of households earning less than $250,000. The department is now saying that it's looking for ways to work with private lenders to make sure commercially held student loan borrowers can benefit from forgiveness. A spokesperson for the White House has said that these borrowers will have more than a year to apply for the relief once the government's student loan forgiveness application is available, and they don't need to take any action now. Chuck Schumer has promised to pass a side deal on permitting reform with Joe Manchin to the massive tax, climate, and health care tax bills. The decision will be made, and it's going to be tougher for House progressives who feel little obligation to help Manchin pass one of his top energy development priorities to block it. Some Democratic representatives have circulated a letter calling for a standalone vote on permitting reform measures. Schumer told reporters, "We are hoping this continuing resolution providing temporary funding will go to about mid-December, and then we might be able to do a bill that will provide government-wide funds through the remainder of the fiscal year." Some Republicans might want to hold off until next year on finishing fiscal year 2023 spending, and hope that their party wins control of the least House representatives in the November midterm elections that will give Republicans say over budget priorities. Currently, Democrats control the House, Senate, and the White House. Without a stopgap funding bill, some federal agencies deemed non-essential would actually have to shut down until Congress settled between the differences of Democrats and Republicans. McConnell told reporters, "The cleaner the continuing resolution, the better." Permitting the reform actually would update federal procedures for energy-related projects like pipelines and export facilities. September's passage of such a bill was part of a deal with Democratic Joe Manchin during negotiations this summer on a wide-ranging addressing climate change and lowering some prescription prices that have been enacted. The Alaska Senate just approved a state spending package. It includes cash payments of $5,500. The package includes dividends of about $4,200 to residents this year, as well as energy relief checks of $1,300. The vote in Alaska comes as a number of other states are considering sending out more direct payments to the residents as Americans continue to grapple with record high inflation and rising gas prices, driven partly by the crisis. The package passed 15-5 and was sent to the House, which will decide whether to agree with the Senate version. Lawmakers believe the House is more likely to reject it. If that happens, lawmakers from both chambers will have to reach an agreement in a conference committee. The House approved a version of the budget last month. That included a dividend of roughly $1,200 and a $1,300 energy check. Lawmakers in recent years have been divided over the size of the dividend, traditionally paid with earnings from the state's oil wealth fund, known as the Alaska Permanent Fund. During a debate on the budget, the Senate voted 10-9 in support of a dividend of about $4,300. According to Newsweek, the COLA, the cost for that size, will be nearly $2.8 billion, while the cost of the proposed energy payment is estimated at $840 million. Supporters of the Senate budget argued that Alaskans could use the financial help, while critics raised concern about the fiscal consequences.
Mr. Speaker, this will be the fifth consecutive two-year authorization of the Water Resources Development Act since 2014. Tradition revived by our former chair, Bill Schuster. And I'm grateful for the partnership of Sam Graves, the subcommittee the committee ranking member, subcommittee Grace Napolitano, chair, and subcommittee ranking member Dave Rouser for all their work in developing this historic Water Resources Development Act. This legislation builds on the successes of previous WRDA bills, moving projects from feasibility to construction. Two-year cycle is critical to addressing future water resource needs of our nation. It authorizes construction of 18 reports of the Chief of Engineers who studied and transmitted to Congress since the last word of bill signed into law. These Chief's reports represent thoroughly vetted, locally driven projects, highly engaged cost-share partners. Core projects cover a myriad of purposes: navigation, flood control, levees, ecosystem restoration that will benefit communities all across the United States of America. The bill also authorizes 72 new feasibility studies and direct the Corps to expedite the completion of 14 ongoing studies. It is critical that we keep our infrastructure in this nation up to date with new challenges, with severe weather events, sea level rise, and other things, and deal with the challenges that communities across this country endure. For 2 decades, I spent 2 decades, it actually started longer than that, Bud Schuster, 96, trying to free up the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. That is a tax paid by shippers, which ultimately is passed on to consumers on the value of imported goods, which have been impounded for years, totaling nearly $10 billion, where our harbors needed dredging, jetties need rebuilding. We finally got that done in 2020. That was historic. It gives the Corps more resources on the harbor side, which means they can devote a little more of their allocation to the inland waterways and to their other 40-some-odd billion dollars of backlog of critical projects across the country. It will meet the challenge of climate change and by rebuilding these navigation jetties and breakwaters to new heights, dimensions necessary for sea level rise, extreme weather, study the impacts of coastal storms on inland flooding, particular concern of the ranking member, address future water supplies in the arid West, particular concern of, all of us in the West, but particularly those further south, and the chair of the subcommittee. 21st century challenges should have 21st century solutions. The Corps has been hamstrung in their ability. We've worked with other members, have heard similar concerns. We included a solution in this bill to allow the Corps to be the innovation export they need to be to address our nation's ongoing new challenges. I'm also proud it will continue building upon efforts to provide equitable project outcomes, flexibility to communities with affordability concerns. It will address the needs of economically disadvantaged, minority, rural, tribal communities in an affordable manner. In particular, the bill creates a tribal liaison position within each Corps office. The Corps often fails to consult meaningfully with the tribes. Tribal leaders will have a direct line of communication now into the regional office, back to the national office, to get consultation, technical assistance, and information to them. And I'd really like to thank Subcommittee Chair Napolitano